Test. There we go. Why was that muted? Huh. Is that muted by default? I guess. Alright. There we go. Alright. Discovered. Doesn't matter. La, la, la. Are there controls for Spotify? I guess I really don't need it. I think I can control most of that with the keyboard.
Jatar! The sea will claim your corpse!
I'm sure it will. So, what can we do today? Finish the time walking. The daily's done, and then we can probably try to get into a normal raid. I don't know if I'm high enough yet for this dungeon raids. For the drops, 415 for normal. So I guess I'm high enough. I don't know. What? Let me say like item level. Whatever. Where's this world class? We might as well do that and do these and do these.
These goblins are corrupting Azeroth on a massive scale. We cannot let this stand.
I guess I could listen to podcasts. Yeah, let's do that. I have Spotify on here. Fuck my life. Let me download that. Download. So, one of Windows. Fucking A, man.
I'm out of range.
Bye. Need to go here. Search. Spotify. Yes. What the fuck? You just brought it up. Why does that look weird? Whatever. Install. Installing? What the heck? You own this app. Okay. Where the fuck is it at? There we go. So get out my face. Log in. Log in with Facebook.
I need to get closer.
Recently played.
This is Fantasy Football Today.
Going on with him, but he did have a anti-Castro stance. So that may not sit well. Is an owner I think that would not be afraid to bring him in. And like you alluded to, Heath, there's a relationship between Cutler and Gase when he was the offensive coordinator in Chicago, and Cutler had one of, if not his best seasons in his career. So that's the two best options available. I would imagine he's probably retired in RG3.
I tweeted last night, I don't really care that much for the wide receivers. There's a small downgrade. Huge downgrade.
Yeah, it sounds like you don't want them. You said I don't
really
care
care
much.
too much.
I don't care too much about moving these wide receivers down the line.
It hurts later. I mean, he's the one I think makes it happen. There was a great rapport between Stills and Moore.
What is this?
Last year.
You must forgive me, but I was not expecting company.
Maybe that helps, but I think it downgrades him a little bit because Matt Moore will look down.
Also, in the game, as far as Ted Larson, they have a biceps.
Well, they need to have 5 healthy guys. I was under the impression, maybe I was wrong with this, that Larson still had to beat out Isaac Austin, who they drafted this year. Isaac Asiata. He can fill that spot.
I have
There's
longed
still some
for
offensive
a good
linemen that they could look at, right? But as we saw last year, Bouncy on, Ajayi amazing. Bouncy off, Ajayi just okay.
They actually have good depth.
I have such fascinating
Ted
things
Larson,
to
Ted Larson.
show you.
Okay. So we don't really care much about that. Probably don't really care much about Kaiser could start the first preseason game. We're hoping that he's just good enough to win the job.
That's not actually wasn't bad when he played left. Kaiser should be better. But really, this is get Corey Coleman the ball, get Kenny Britt the ball, get David Johnson the ball, get Derek Wells way, and get Duke Johnson involved as much as
Is there a little bit of the hope that the big, shiny new offensive line in Cleveland props up whichever quarterback starts there, kind of like it did in Dallas?
Oh,
with
100%.
Dak Prescott?
Absolutely.
And I'm not saying that you're going to draft a Browns quarterback or even consider them off the waiver wire right away, but having a good offensive line in front of a quarterback, especially one that's either inexperienced, not very good, or both, helps.
Sure.
It gives them an extra second.
Helps Marcus Mariota, helps Derek Carr, helps Dak Prescott.
It's part of the game.
Huge part of the game. And
Okay.
I think if this is a 2 QB league, yeah, you want to keep an eye on if that guy can be better than Alex Smith or Blake Bortles or Joe Flacco or whoever's at that 20 to 25 range.
I'll ask you this. A Browns quarterback or Matt Moore? You're in a 2 quarterback league. You got to take one of them. Who you taking?
Matt Moore.
Me too. So as much as we're talking about the promise of a new day of a quarterback in Cleveland, it's still Matt Moore and a bunch of other guys probably ahead of him.
Really interesting yesterday afternoon. We get a blurb that
Fine job teaching these goblins. What happens when you meddle with the dark-eyed dwarves?
No, I expected it.
Of course,
He expected it.
goblins have those tiny
You,
brains,
though,
so you'll
after
probably
reading
Is that
have
why
to
you were
mash a few
screaming
hundred
at the
more
office?
for
Did you
the
see
lesson
this
sinks
report?
in.
Did you see it?
But after you read the blurb, you went and read the article. And like the tone changed in the very next paragraph, right?
Yeah, that all 3 of these guys are going to get used, and the vision. Ultimately, what it said is the vision is that these guys split 30 to 35 carries. So, in theory, you could have them average 32.5 carries per game, and then you've got Joe Mixon averaging 30 a game, and there's 12.5 left for Jeremy Hill and Giovanni Bernard. Is that possible? Sure. Was this the opinion of a writer who's very close to the team, certainly has been around the Bengals for a long time? Yes. Is it coming straight from the mouth of Marvin Lewis or Ernie Zampese?
No. What is this?
Regardless, I think Mixon is one of the bigger risers of the preseason just because of how in love with him they seem to be. We had a similar situation last night. Packers reporter Rob Demovsky said Jamal Williams is pushing time up the field.
Did I say Ernie Zampese?
Kenzie.
His son.
Yes. Jamal Williams is pushing time up the field. He's working with the first team. And then minutes later, Court tweets himself, "Don't crown anyone yet. Montgomery back with the starters for the next team period." Every backup running back gets work with the first team. Jamal Williams getting some work with the first team makes perfect sense. He's going to get touches with the first team this year. I have no doubt.
He's going to play. Is he going to start and be the lead back in Green Bay? No one can say.
Does this little report, Jamie, change your opinion? You came around on Montgomery a little bit.
I still have Montgomery ranked higher. I did move him down a little bit after I initially did. Because I think the biggest thing is, and this is what Demovsky keeps pushing, which I'm sure Mike McCarthy will start to say if it happens in a game. If Ty Montgomery can't pass block, he's not going to. And so I would hope that he learned from what he did last year.
He's going to play more than he did last year. He's still going to play.
Not if Aaron Rodgers gets blown up at all.
Like, I don't think he's pass block.
No, but he hasn't.
And it's supposed to.
Yes.
He's working.
And
He got bigger.
And that apparently is a strength of Jamal Williams.
Yes.
And I could be wrong here. I would assume the most important commodity of the Packers is Aaron Rodgers, and protecting him is of the utmost importance. And so if Ty Montgomery, a converted wide receiver, not used to standing in the way of blitzing linebackers or safeties, running at him full speed, by comparison to a guy who's played running back for the majority of his life, I would assume, in Jamal Williams, that's probably a little bit more natural. So Montgomery has to prove that he can handle that. And so the less that he does that, the less he will be on the field by what I think we're all hoping to see, which is that he would take this job over. So what Mike McCarthy has been saying is he's the real deal, he's this, he's that. he's not necessarily doing that in practice to the level you would hope.
Yeah, he had kind of a weird quote because he said he just needs rep and pass protection because he's actually really high in ability for pass protection. So he just hasn't done it enough. That guy's a stud now. So,
Who do you call a stud?
Montgomery? Yes.
I'm still
To me, that tells you who's in the lead.
Oh, there's no question.
Oh,
who's the lead.
he's in the lead.
Right.
But it's, I don't know if Ty Montgomery takes the leap that we're hoping for, or the Ty Montgomery supporters are hoping for. Because this kid Williams, and I retweeted Demofsky's report, and then a guy who's a friend of our show, Dane Brugler, retweeted me and said, this is what I said on draft night, that he could do it all in terms of Williams. And
Dane said that Williams is this year's Jordan Howard.
Yes.
That's his prediction.
Yes. And
It's just a big prediction.
I've taken Jamal Williams. You guys have been in enough drafts with me. I've taken him in every draft.
When?
It's gone down a little bit now. I was probably taking him in the 7th round. I think when we did our pick by pick, we were like, I think I took him in the 6th or 7th round. Yeah. Pick by pick. Now I'm getting him in the 8th, 9th round. I took him in the draft for doing the top picks. The mock draft there. I have the draft, if he ends up being what I think he could be, which what Dane is alluding to, I don't think he's going to be.
Fuck, why is it playing? Where's my most recent ones? Jesus Christ. Here we go. This one I want. This.
Concussion. They're going into a bye. Patrick Mahomes may not be ready for next week, but let's focus more on the guys who got hurt. This one was late, but Jarvis Landry got hurt in the 4th quarter, not long before we went on the air. And Deshaun Watson got kicked in the eye and then threw a touchdown pass. That was cool. But Matt Breida, Dede Westbrook, Miles Sanders, Chase Edmonds. That's a bad situation. They got a Thursday game, and it could be Zach Zenner, could be Alfred Morris, DJ Foster if he gets back. So
who's the game against?
It's against San Francisco.
Yeah, you're not starting any Cardinals.
Yeah. So, but all right. So, what's your take on some of these major injuries here?
Well, Brandon Cooks, it's another concussion for him. I'm starting to get concerned about just his availability. Thank goodness he's got a week before his next game. But I think people are getting frustrated with Brandon Cooks. I think in smaller leagues, wouldn't surprise me if he hit the waiver wire. 10-team leagues, 8-team leagues. You could see him there because he's just not delivering, and you're never going to feel good starting him. Patrick Mahomes, we'll see him in a couple of weeks, hopefully, fingers crossed. Jarvis Landry, I believe, played through the injury and got you, pretty much the numbers that he gets you every week.
Possible.
I don't know what to tell you about Jarvis Landry that you don't know already. Same thing with Baker Mayfield. Breida, we talked about the 49ers. I think Tevin Coleman is going to be the guy there. Dede Westbrook, if he misses time, I think it's a big opportunity for Chris Conley. I think he would be the first guy that would have a chance to step up. And we saw Keelan Cole catch a touchdown for Jacksonville. And there could be somebody else in that passing game, outside of DJ Chark, of course, who could end up helping people. The Cardinals offense is a mess. Miles Sanders with the shoulder. He said after the game that he would be okay. So hopefully the Philadelphia Eagles have him for their next game because he started to look really good. He didn't have the ball a lot because he got hurt, but he looked really good.
And I just want to let everybody know that Heath and I started, we started Brandon Cooks, Dede Westbrook, and Chase Edmonds in the For the People League. Good job, Heath.
So you jinxed them.
Way to set that lineup.
You jinxed all three of them.
I did not even look at that team.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm sorry. I started Brandon Cooks, Dede Westbrook, and Chase Edmonds in our league. So that brings us to...
You could at least, look at my rankings when you make the lineup.
Well, it wasn't... They all got hurt, dummy. It's not that I started them over someone who didn't want us to start, you idiot.
Why are you
moron.
getting so personal?
Yeah, I promise you we had somebody better than Brandon Cooks to start in my rankings.
Oh, yeah, we could have started Damian Williams, or we could have started TJ Hawkinson.
Sounds like you made some bad waiver wire ads.
And we only have like $15 left. An early look at the waiver wire then. Any guys that really jump out at you? I think Raheem Mostert is one of them. And maybe Trey Carson.
Well, the most important one, I think, hasn't played yet. But with the report that Kenyon Drake wasn't traveling to Pittsburgh, it sure sounds like this is going to be Mark Walton's job.
He's going to pick up a lot of extra work in the passing game because that's where Drake was doing most of his work. And every time they've thrown it to Kalen Balazs, something comical has happened. So I don't think they'll be doing that anymore. If I had known that Kenyon Drake was not going to Pittsburgh, I would have ranked Balazs the top 30 running back this week. He's available in nearly 2/3 of leagues, and I wouldn't be surprised if
Balazs or Walton?
Walton.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, that's why I screw up the rankings because you put the wrong names in there.
I don't.
Okay, so Mark Walton. Like, well, why are you going to be more excited about Mark Walton than Kenyon Drake? Dolphins Kenyon Drake, you know? Like, Drake's been a
I don't know
bust.
where Kenyon Drake's going.
No, I mean, then like, Kenyon Drake has been an almost completely useless fantasy player. I mean, he's had like 70 total yards, but he's been pretty bad. Why are we going to be rushing to pick up Mark Walton on the worst team with this stinking Kalen Balazs getting goal line work?
Mark Walton has been getting more touches than Kenyon Drake already. Kenyon Drake wasn't getting the work. Mark Walton's going to be getting a starter's workload now.
He can also catch passes out of the backfield, so there's definite garbage time, check down potential with Mark Walton. And here's an idea, because it sounds like Jalen Samuels has a chance to play on Monday night. What if, before the Monday night game, you cut Benny Snell and you pick up Mark Walton, if your league allows ad drops for players who haven't played yet, and you get him on your team before the waiver wire?
Not bad.
Love it.
Not bad. Let me tell you about SeatGeek, everybody. SeatGeek is the best way, the only way to go to games. I use it every time. So, look, you may not be going to a game this weekend. By the way, it's not just games. Concerts, comedy, theater, whatever. Next time you go into an event, download the SeatGeek app and use the promo code FFT and get $10 off your first SeatGeek purchase. Again, the promo code is FFT. So why is SeatGeek better? Well, look, I told you that story about somebody wanting to go to a game, and I told them to look at SeatGeek, and they said, wow, they really are cheaper. I read those emails from our listeners that say, hey, I use SeatGeek and I found great deals. Well, that's because SeatGeek searches multiple sites and brings in all these results. So you get that competition, and you get the best results, and then it grades every ticket based on value. And that's how you see these great deals. So I've used it to go to football games, to go to baseball games. I mean, all the time I use it, and I recommend it to everybody, whether it's on this show or off the air. And SeatGeek has so many 5-star reviews. They really care about the customer, and every purchase is fully guaranteed. So please use that SeatGeek app next time you need tickets, or go to SeatGeek.com. Just check it out. You're going to see why it's the best. Use the promo code FFT. Get $10 off your first SeatGeek purchase. Promo code is FFT on SeatGeek. So what do we think about Trey Carson? Danny Amendola, his second big game in a row. He's had 3 games this year with 95 or more yards. Gardner Minshew against Houston. Holy cow, you need a quarterback next week. He's 64% owned. He's great. And then Dallas Goedert keeps catching touchdowns. This is going to be a fun waiver wire week, I think. There's a lot of guys that I'm interested in here.
I could pick myself over Amendola. You know, we got so focused about Golden Tate playing against his former team that we forgot about how Golden Tate was used when he was in Detroit. Remember, those years when he was there, they had a hard time running the football. They kept using multiple running backs. It went nowhere. And Golden Tate in the slot was an extension of the run game. And what was Danny Amendola in the first game without Kerryon Johnson? He wasn't every single one of his targets wasn't exactly an extension of the run game. They weren't all these little dink and dunk passes. Some of them were pretty long. But he got work out of the slot, just like Golden Tate used to, when the Lions' run game was useless. I think I would be interested in adding Danny Amendola. How excited I would be to add him, I don't know. I can't say that he would be my number 1 waiver claim right now. I got to see who else is out there. But in the PPR league, I think I would check him out.
I kind of don't want to put Gardner Minshew in my quarterback column this week because I'm irritated at you guys that he's only 64% owned. Not you guys, as in Adam and Dave, but you guys, the listeners. 2 weeks ago, we said if you add Gardner Minshew, he scored 22 fantasy points, the top 12 quarterback, had a good week. This week, go add Gardner Minshew. He was 61% owned at the beginning. There were like 3% of the people that play on CBS actually went and added him. I don't even know if they started him. They might have added him and sat him on their bench and didn't even get credit for it. And he goes and has a week like he did, and now he's facing the Houston Texans. He should be started in 95% of leagues.
He is 34% started, 64% owned, 34% started for Gardner Minshew, who continues to have the best games against certain teams. He had the best game against Denver of all the quarterbacks that faced Denver. He had the best game against the Jets. The Jets been very good against quarterbacks. I think the best game, maybe the second best, but 29 points against the Jets. And now it's Houston, and they are without J.J. Watt and already bad against the pass. And I'll tell
And he
you,
had the best game against Carolina.
that's
I
the
think
other one.
he's
That's
just
the
the best.
Or maybe.
The best.
So does that mean
hold
does that
on.
mean that Nick Foles doesn't have a job?
It
Yeah,
doesn't
he's
matter.
definitely the best game against the Jets.
So, well, the other thing I was going to say is Jamison Crowder. Very interested in him if he's available in the league. He's 60% owned at Miami, then the Giants, then the Redskins, then the Raiders, then the Bengals, then the Dolphins. It begins now for the Jets. That incredibly easy schedule, and they might trade Robbie Anderson for Crowder, maybe even Demaryius Thomas in the league. That's on Tuesday's show. This is about Sunday night. Winners and losers. Heath, your winners are Tevin Coleman, who we already talked about. You can give a quick thought on him. And then you can tell us that guy who's a winner without even playing.
Yeah, Tevin Coleman, more red zone work, more Matt Breida injuries, more success for Tevin Coleman. He gets the Arizona Cardinals on a short week. He's going to be awesome. He's a winner. He's a top 20 running back rest of the season, and maybe even higher. And then the guy that didn't play is Cam Newton. It was always silly, in my opinion, when we were talking about the possibility that Cam Newton might be ready to play football again, and the Carolina Panthers might be better off with Kyle Allen under center. And we just got a little taste that Kyle Allen's not for the Panthers under center, and Cam Newton should be the starting quarterback as soon as his body is ready.
Yeah, I think
I hope
he's
it's
pretty
ready.
available.
He is like 50% of the league, somewhere around there.
Yeah, I'm a
Week
checker.
11, Carolina's got Atlanta, and then they're at New Orleans, then Washington at home, then at Atlanta. That is a nice 4-game stretch where Cam Newton can help catapult your team into fantasy playoffs. Once you get to the playoffs, the matchups are kind of, not sure I like it. But he's somebody that they won't win unless he's ready to go. Let's see how soon that'll be. Stashing him now could help you get into your fantasy playoffs if you're 4-4, 3-5, and you make a run.
He's 44% owned Cam Newton, and if he's right and he's running, the matchup might not matter. Let's rank these running backs. Tevin Coleman, Philip Lindsay, Royce Freeman, Sony Michel. Tevin Coleman, Philip Lindsay, Royce Freeman, Sony Michel. How would you rank them?
I think Royce would be last. I think Sony would be next. And I would imagine Tevin would be a notch ahead of Philip Lindsay because Tevin has a chance to be more than a 50% timeshare running back like Lindsay and Freeman are.
What format are we playing in?
I'm going to go half PPR.
I'm going to go Sony last. And I will go Tevin, Lindsay, Freeman, Sony.
Worth
I
noting,
think Tevin and Lindsay at the top.
worth noting that well, two things are worth noting. One, Royce Freeman scored a touchdown again in 3 weeks, or 2 out of 3. And
I believe it's 2 straight.
okay,
with
yeah,
a rushing
the Chiefs
touchdown.
game, right? The Chiefs game and this game against the Colts. So that's 2 straight. And the other thing is that Sony Michel, Rex Burkhead was back, and Sony Michel still got all that work. But he didn't score. He didn't
For now.
really run well.
I would trust the
Okay,
For now.
Dave, your winners
blind,
are Ryan
night elf
Tannehill
mongrel.
and other page. Who's that winner? Joe Mixon. Okay, Ryan Tannehill and Joe Mixon.
That's the most excited anybody's said Joe Mixon's name in like 3 weeks. Let's start with Tannehill, who has had 29 or more pass attempts in consecutive games. Do you know how many times this year Marcus Mariota had 29 or more pass attempts?
1.
In consecutive games.
Oh, in consecutive games. 0.
How many times did Marcus Mariota have 29 or more pass attempts in consecutive games last year?
1.
1 time. That's
crushing
it. You really are. So that tells me this coaching staff might be trusting Tannehill a little bit more throwing the ball than they did Mariota, and it shows. I know the numbers weren't great for Corey Davis. I know a touchdown saved A.J. Brown from having an ugly game, but Tannehill played well. He did all right, and I think at Carolina next week, and then Kansas City the week after that, Jacksonville at home after that, at Indianapolis, he sets up as another quarterback who can help you out 5 weeks or before.
Right, and he's got the Chiefs at home during the Bye NATO week, right?
Yes.
All right, what about Joe Mixon? Caught a 1-yard touchdown. It's like the third time he's done that this year. I guess he was okay. He was started in 50% of leagues, but 17 carries for 66 yards in London against
That's
the
a
Rams.
3.9 rushing average, baby.
He's on
That's
a bye.
great for Joe Mixon.
Yeah.
He had 21 touches. It's a season high. I thought the Bengals were committed to him a little bit more than they were in previous games. I don't have the official snap percentage of how much he played, but I would imagine it's higher than it's been the past couple of weeks. I think they tried to get him involved a little bit more. We'll see what this offensive line looks like coming out of their bye. Maybe there's a semblance of hope for him to be a high-end flex, a low-end number 2 running back, somebody who might be able to get you 10 PPR points in a week. He is not a total loss.
Okay. How did we do in FanDuel this week, guys?
Okay.
I didn't
Not
win.
bad.
I
Not bad.
just missed cashing in the FFT contest. You know, I had a pretty good week, but you know what? There was just a lot of points being scored, so I missed 2 points away from cashing in that contest. It's Sean Watson, Latavius Murray, Leonard Fournette, DeAndre Hopkins, Jonnu Smith, Saquon Barkley. How did I not cash? Because Corey Davis killed me. Cortland Sutton was just okay, and the Bears DSP was not very good. Now, I did play another tournament, and I won there, and I won all my money back just a couple bucks. That's what you got to do. You just got to win big. With one contest, you can make it all back, right? There you go. So on FanDuel, you sign up at FanDuel.com/FFT. FanDuel.com/FFT. You make some lineups, you use the matchups, you use the information that we're giving you, all the chips that you want from us, or Doc, and you play, and you have a lot of fun, and you win some money. It's really, I think that, honestly, listening to this podcast, being a dedicated listener is going to help you. It's going to have a lot of fun. So get there on FanDuel at FanDuel.com/FFT. Make a $20 deposit and get $5 in site credit every week for 4 weeks. So you put in 20, you get 20 back. 4 weeks of a $5 entry, basically, on FanDuel at FanDuel.com/FFT. Join right now and compete against us every week. FanDuel.com/FFT. Over to the losers. Dave's losers are Zach Ertz and Kyler Murray. Zach Ertz now 20 yards in this game after 38 yards last week at Dallas. And Dallas got it. Keeps scoring touchdowns. How worried are you about Zach Ertz?
Let's put it this way. Would you buy low on Zach Ertz if you had the chance? Open question. Anybody can answer.
Yeah, I think I would, yeah.
Heath?
Yeah. Yeah.
But what does
He's
that mean,
giving
though?
you.
What does that mean by
He's
low?
giving you buy low. I don't know how low you can get him for, but probably you'd have to pay more than a typical guy that's had 8 non-PPR points in his last 3 games combined. How about 16 PPR points in his last 3 games combined?
Yeah, I'd give up like
Yikes.
I would give up somebody like Calvin Ridley, who I'm very optimistic about going.
You would give up Calvin Ridley? Okay.
Yeah,
Interesting.
I'm still hopeful for Ertz. I mean, this is just weird, but I just feel like he cannot continue to be this bad. His first 6 games, he had between 54 and 72 yards each game. He was doing well. Last 2 games have been terrible. What's your
The kick is the schedule. I think it gets difficult with the Bears coming up next week. Then a bye. Then the Patriots after that. And I don't know how reliable he is. Are we starting him because he's doing the Zach Ertz? That's what I feel like we're doing. And he'll probably be a top 12 tight end for me next week, even though he's taking on the Bears. But we've seen Dallas Goedert take work away from him. Whenever Deshaun Jackson comes back, he's going to take work away from him. If Miles Sanders is healthy, he's going to take work away from him. There are just too many places the ball can go besides Zach Ertz, and we are really feeling it the last 3 weeks. It's tough. I don't know how good I can feel recommending Ertz as a must-start tight end moving forward.
And your other loser is Kyler Murray, who I'm pretty sure has 9 touchdowns in 8 games, 7 passing and 2 rushing. And he did not score this game. So that's 9 points at New Orleans this week after 6 points at the Giants last week. So yeah, what do you think? We got San Francisco then in his next 3 games are San Francisco and then a bye.
Yeah, so it might be time to put Kyler Murray back on the waiver wire, and it sounds silly to say, but Ryan Tannehill, Gardner Minshew, They've got better matchups. They're playing better. Arizona's got a huge red zone problem. On the season coming into this week, they were 31st in red zone touchdown percentage. They were 0 for 2 on Sunday, so they can't be higher than that. On third down on Sunday, they were 2 for 12, and that schedule's tough. Even after the bye, they've got the Rams and they've got the Steelers. It's going to be tough. You're never going to feel good about starting Kyler Murray.
Maybe you will, though, in Week 10. They are at Tampa Bay, and that's the week that has 6 teams on bye, including Deshaun Watson, Tom Brady, Carson Wentz, and Gardner Minshew. So if you own Watson, Wentz, Brady, Minshew, and somebody drops Kyler Murray, not a terrible idea to keep him for Week 10 when he faces Tampa Bay on the road.
It's literally his only matchup left that is favorable, where you hope that the Cardinals can score red zone touchdowns.
And Heath, who are your losers?
Ty Johnson or anyone who attempted to carry the football for the Detroit Lions. They're just a bad running team. Johnson's not a special talent. He got fewer carries than Trey Carson, fewer targets than J.D. McKissick, and I'm sorry about all the fat that's spent on him. And then Larry Fitzgerald now has 7 targets over his last 2 games combined. Christian Kirk came back and was the clear priority in the passing game. They're running more than they were early in the year. As good as things looked the first 2 weeks for Larry Fitzgerald, I may finally, after all these years, be to the point where I'm almost out of it.
Well, let's go back to Ty Johnson. He had 7 carries. He had 1 catch.
He had another catch, bounce off his hand.
Yeah, he
Would've
could
been
have had a nice
game.
play there. Trey Carson, though, had 12 carries to Johnson's 7. Is there any Detroit running back you want to own?
Is Kenyon Drake a Detroit Lion yet?
Okay.
By this time Monday, he might be. Who knows? Ty Johnson actually played the most snaps of any. Got that right. 39% of the snaps. Trey Carson at 31. J.D. McKissick had 26%. And Paul Perkins had 10%.
Ty Johnson was pretty good in my points per participation trophy league.
They give those out now? Unbelievable. All right, quick worryometer here. Le'Veon Bell. Le'Veon Bell, 12 touchdowns, 35 total yards.
I think he's the biggest benefactor of that schedule coming up for the Jets.
He's the best buy low.
I think there's just there is a question still. Are the Jets good enough to take advantage of this wonderful schedule that's coming up? They've mostly just been one of the worst offenses in the NFL, except for 1 game against the Cowboys. And I'm worried. I would put him as a 5 or a 6. I'm worried that maybe he has every other game in this upcoming stretch is good, but I don't know that he's going to be a number 1 running back.
I don't know if you could come up with a better schedule than what he's got. Miami Giants, Redskins, Raiders, Bengals, Miami, Sisters of the Poor, Valdosta State.
Do they get to play the Jets? They're
Hold
really
on,
good.
He gets to practice against them.
Let me ask you this. I think what's really obvious in fantasy is that there aren't that many bell cow runners, right? You have to start guys who are in committees all the time. If you can get a guy who's a bell cow running back who gets almost all of the touches for his team, you're in business. So, are there any running backs who are in committees that you would actually prefer to Le'Veon Bell? The first one that comes to mind is Tevin Coleman, because if Matt Breida is out for an extended period of time, he might be better than Le'Veon Bell. But like Philip Lindsay, Sony Michel, David Montgomery coming off a big game.
The guy that scored a touchdown since we started tonight, Aaron Jones. Yes.
Okay. You'd rather have him than Le'Veon Bell, huh?
I am trying to be cautious in only saying his name to start.
Because I don't think it's a bad idea. I don't think it's a bad idea to sell a timeshare for a feature back. That's the point I'm making.
Right, but how featured has Le'Veon Bell been recently?
Compared to the other guys on his team, he's been very featured.
So if you had Tevin Coleman on your team, you're going to trade him straight up for Le'Veon Bell.
Well, that was the one example that was tough, though.
Right, but I think if you had Tevin Coleman on your team, you would probably be on board with that. And I don't know if the guy that has Le'Veon would race to accept that.
Yeah, I don't know.
Because of the potential of Le'Veon, and they're still hoping for it, and kind of sort of seeing it. He probably deserves some significant research and analysis thing. I mean, the offensive line isn't as good. Losing Assembly is hurting them a lot.
And they lost Khalil today. They keep losing offensive.
I don't know if that one was as big of a deal.
Well,
as
Assembly wasn't playing that well either, but the bottom line is these guys were the starters. So how good are the backups? You know, they have a bad offensive line, and we were a little worried about that going in because you know how he used to run in Pittsburgh, waiting 5 minutes for the play to develop behind a great offensive line. So I don't think you can be unconcerned that we're about Le'Veon Bell. But just the question is, would you trade the 13 carries a game they might get from somebody for a player who has the potential to have 20 touches when the game script is right? Question you have to ask yourself. I think those people probably would.
I think he's also one of those guys that when the game script is right, and maybe even when it's not so right, he can get to close to 20 touches.
That's what I mean. Yeah, he's the guy. Who are you more worried about going forward? Keenan Allen or Odell Beckham?
Yes.
Beckham has Denver, Buffalo, Pittsburgh coming up. Chris Harris is legitimately awesome if he doesn't get traded. Buffalo's so good against number one. So, Keenan Allen, Odell Beckham. Who are you more worried about, Dave?
I think it's Odell Beckham. And that was just being funny when I talked about Keenan Allen. Although Keenan Allen played almost 70% of the snaps for the Chargers. He was, I guess, technically on a snap count, since usually he plays every play for them. And he still had a lot of targets and he still had a lot of catches, but he didn't have a lot of yards.
Dropped the
and I don't know how
touchdown.
many downfield targets he had either.
Did you see the touchdown he dropped, though? He dropped a pretty long touchdown. He could have had a huge game.
Another one?
Right through his hands, yeah.
There's been a few of those for him, these almost touchdowns for Keenan Allen. I think I'm more worried about Odell still, because at least Keenan Allen is getting a lot of targets, including in the end zone. Browns are having a hard time, and I know they just played the Patriots, and everybody has a hard time against the Patriots, but how many big plays have we had from Odell Beckham this year?
The Jets game.
4?
Yeah.
4? Yeah, the
flicker.
Jets game he had 2. Right.
Yep.
I mean, there aren't that many, and he's just not delivering like we thought. I'm more concerned about him, and it's an extension of being concerned about the Browns.
All right, well, guess what? That's the first game we're going to talk about. We're going to take a quick break on fantasy football today. When we come back, Patriots 27, Cleveland 13. After this. Okay, football fans, you're at the bar, watching the game, having a Tullamore Dew Irish whiskey. Your team scores, and suddenly you're best friends with the strangers next to you. Now, not the kind of friends you drive to the airport, more like the kind of friends who you exchange stats with, argue ref calls with, and dry those post-game tears with, all without knowing each other's names. Tullamore Dew calls these friendships fanships. So next time the game is on, strike up a fanship and order a Tully for the person next to you. Tullamore Dew is the original, triple-blended, smooth-sipping Irish whiskey made exactly for these great moments in fandom. When it's game time, it's Tully time. Tullamore Dew Irish whiskey, 40% alcohol by volume, 2019 imported by William Grant & Sons Incorporated, New York, New York. Patriots with another win, with another defensive touchdown, 27-13 over the Browns, and it's time for Heath Cummings, believe it or not.
It's out here grinding.
Julian Edelman is the only must-start Patriot.
I don't believe it, because I think James White has earned must-start status in PPR.
He did it again.
Double digits every week, baby.
But it's 11 to 13, maybe 14. 11 to 13 to 14 every single week in PPR.
If I can hang my hat on it, and I know it's double digits, he's good enough to be a number 2 fantasy running back for me in PPR.
This was the most, one of, maybe not quite the most, but maybe the most disturbing James White game yet. Because he's had a lot of bad luck and a lot of touchdowns he should have scored or did score and had called back. He had 2 carries and 5 touchdowns. And he kind of struggled a little bit when Rex Burkhead was playing earlier. He's a PPR must start if you have a flexible trade. But I'm concerned about all the different weapons. Listen, I'm not saying the Patriots won't be good. They're going to be awesome. We're not going to know on a week-to-week basis who's going to be good if everyone's healthy.
Right, except for Edelman, as you said. What do you think about Philip Jeff's ownership, though? 54%. He had 3 catches for 42 yards on 6 targets. Bad conditions, for what it's worth. But Philip said at 54% on.
Seems to me about right. I know that everyone else has been wanting to add Philip Dorsett to more leagues, and he was producing like someone who should be owning more leagues, but I didn't really see the opportunity for the most part. A lot of games we're looking at 3, 4, 5 targets. He did get up to 6 in this one, and wasn't that good. So I think like he should be owning about half of leagues, maybe 60%.
I wouldn't be surprised if he gets released coming up before this game at Baltimore. It's not going to be an easy matchup for him.
By fantasy,
and then he's got to buy after
by
that.
fantasy owners, right? Not by
Yeah.
not by the Patriots.
Not by the Patriots.
You never know.
No.
Well,
No, I don't think so. But after that, they're at Philadelphia. And I can't imagine the Eagles pass, or the Eagles secondary rather, being good enough to slow him down. So we'll probably come back to him as a possible flex in Week 11.
all right, that's Philip Dorsett. Would you rather have Odell Beckham or Kenny Galladay rest of season?
Kenny.
Yeah, Kenny.
And it's really a shame Nick Chubb fumbled twice because he ran the ball so well. 20 carries for 131 yards, 2 fumbles, 1 catch. But even in 3 lopsided losses, you have gotten massive work from Nick Chubb. So that's excellent. And I know Kareem Hunt coming back soon. We'll talk about that on another show.
When's the last time a running back had the ball kicked out of his grasp by a teammate? Because that's what happened to Nick Chubb. That was how he lost his first fumble.
Oh, that was his first one. And the interception that Mayfield threw was hilarious. What?
Oh.
But he's shovel back.
Yeah, that's got to be one of the worst plays. That'll go down in the annals of bad Cleveland Browns.
Well, how about the
You just look
Bengals?
at it and you go, oh, that's the Browns.
The Bengals had 3 guys drop an interception on one play. On a Jared Goff pass. 3 guys dropped an interception.
I didn't see that one.
Oh, it was like it deserved the Benny Hill. Houston 27, Oakland 24. Raiders had the ball for just over 24 minutes, so big time of possession disparity in favor of the Texans. Heath, believe it or not.
Tyrell Williams back to being a must-start fantasy wide receiver.
Yeah, I buy it. This team's going to throw a bunch. He seems healthy. I know it was a little fluky how he got his numbers this week, but I could imagine that if this is him knocking off the rust, then he should be good to go as at least a low-end wide receiver too moving forward.
I don't know that anyone who gets 6 to 7 targets a game is quite must start at wide receiver. I'm
If
guessing
you score every week,
yeah,
we were just excited about Philip Dorsett.
Yeah, he's not a
This is a better receiver than Dorsett.
Yeah, I agree, but I don't think Dorsett. I can't imagine I'm sitting Tyrell Williams, but this was such a great matchup. I was trying to get you guys to like give him a little more love, and you were so cautious with Tyrell Williams.
How about his schedule moving forward? Lions, Chargers, Bengals, at the Jets, at the Chiefs. Those are the next 5 games. Week 16 is at the Chargers. Oh my goodness, is Derek Carr a streaming quarterback?
I don't believe it.
He had 3 touchdowns against Houston. How about each of the last 4 quarterbacks to play Houston have had at least 3 touchdowns? Here comes Minshew.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, he is.
All right, let's do one more. Let's look at the Texans here. Carlos Hyde, what do you think about him? He has now had 19 or more carries, I think, in 3 of his last 4 games. 76% owned Carlos Hyde.
He's a running back who in non-PPR leagues would be okay starting, hoping to get somewhere between 8 and 14 points. And in PPR, he just doesn't catch the ball enough to trust. Like, that's an easy one that you're going to start James White over.
Right. Okay.
You like him a lot more if he's in flex than you do if he's one of your running backs.
Or on your bench, because that means you're loaded at running back and you don't need to start a guy that's getting you 8 points.
Jacksonville 29 and the Jets 15.
I was going to do something about Minshew being awesome, but I know everyone believes that. So Sam Darnold is still a good multi-week streaming option.
Nope. Because he's going to lose Robbie Anderson. He looked terrible this week, just like he did last week. We've added Sam Darnold for nothing. But the good news is that he probably just cost you a waiver claim or a few pass blocks. You didn't have to overspend to get Sam Darnold, and you should be able to find another quarterback. We've already talked about a bunch. Derek Carr. Derek Carr is a better streaming quarterback to have right now.
I don't know, man. At Miami next week, I still think there are people that could use that.
That's why I added the word multi-week, because I do think that when I finish my rankings this week, I'll probably have him as a top 12 quarterback against the Dolphins. I had Mason Rudolph as a top 8 quarterbacks this week against the Dolphins. But I'm not ready to say that I'm going to feel comfortable using him against all those other defenses. There's a different level there between stream against the Dolphins and stream against the Giants and Bengals.
Are you picking up Chris Conley if D. Westbrook does not play next week at Houston? Conley had 4 catches, 103 yards, and a touchdown on 7 targets. He had a long play. But he's had like 4 pretty good games this week, this season, I think, Chris Conley. So what do you think about him against Houston?
I will pick him up and use him as a number 3 wide receiver if DD's not there.
Okay.
Tennessee 27 and Tampa Bay 23. Jameis Winston's bad player. Sorry. Okay, that's my little aside. Keith, let's believe it or not.
You still can't trust any type of wide receiver.
Yeah, I think so.
I believe it.
I'm a little sad about it, though, because I really thought this could be the start of something big for Corey Davis. And I do like A.J. Brown, but I think I didn't see as much of this game as I would have liked to, but I think a lot of the game plan was to lean on both of their tight ends, Jonnu Smith and Anthony Ferguson.
I don't know if you want to weigh in.
I think they're both 2 tight ends.
I was just going to let Ferguson kind of hang there in the air. I think every time somebody says it on the podcast, we should just let it sit there.
What's so funny about Ferguson?
So, by the way, Heath, did you like the sound clip I sent you yesterday?
Keith, what's your last name again?
I did not hear the sound clip, Adam.
What? David, did you like the sound clip I did?
I listened to it many times in a row. I can't imagine it'll ever make our podcast.
It's the most disgusting thing. I just took a whole bunch of clips from FFT, beginning with something Jamie said about Fab Dollars on Tuesday's Waiver Wire show. And I put in some size and just different things. And I made something that was too inappropriate for the show. So now none of you get to hear it, but just take my word for it. It was really funny. I've been cracking up about it. I was cracking up. I was listening to it during the radio show while the update guy was doing his update. And I started laughing hysterically while he's doing the update. And I kind of threw him off, so I felt bad about that.
And you're in the same room, right?
Yeah, same
He
room.
does the update?
Right, yeah. Like 15
Very professional.
Very unprofessional. Detroit 31. I just want to say one thing about this. Peyton Barber, he's awful, but he did get, I think, almost most of the goal line inside the 10, inside the 5 goals against the Green.
Yeah. You could have stopped that. He's awful.
Believe it or not, you can drop your Bucks running backs.
Yeah.
Believe it.
Yeah, that's a good one. Detroit 31, Giants 26.
None of the Detroit Lions running backs matter in fantasy.
I'm not ready to believe it yet. A, because I think Ty Johnson could still turn into something. And B, the Lions are probably going to add another running back. And that guy will end up being.
But none of their current running backs. And like, why would... So, you're not picking up Trey Carson and you are just going to stick with Ty Johnson?
I think he's got a little bit more juice to his game than Trey Carson. And I'm hoping that what happens that Ty Johnson eventually gets the Lions' share of the running back workload. Now, it could end up being Drake and Ty Johnson. It could be, I think if they go and they make a huge move for Melvin Gordon, for example, which I think seems pretty unlikely, then that'll wipe Ty Johnson off the map.
All right,
Adam, can you just say believe it, please?
I believe it, because here's why. Like, if Kerryon Johnson was having trouble running the football, it's just so obvious they're a bad running team. And Kerryon Johnson wasn't sharing with anyone. So unless someone really does emerge as like a most down, I won't call him an every down back, but a most downs back, and I don't see that happening. Like, I don't think it's a situation where you have to drop Ty Johnson, or you shouldn't pick up Trey Carson, because you could be completely stuck one week, and having a guy who can get 12 carries is just valuable. But at the same, it's almost like roster Ronald Jones. You just got to get lucky and hope they score, because I don't think they're going to get much else.
Is he a bye week running back? Is that where we are with Ty Johnson?
This should be your
Probably.
bye week with Ty Johnson, because you're like, bye.
Saying bye to him. Yeah, very good. This is why I was nervous about spending so much fab on him. And there were other people, I don't think they were really on our podcast, but other people in the world who were ready to pony up for Ty Johnson. And it's why Like 25% was my
Just tell the
absolute
prince
max.
you
on it.
release the prisoners.
Anything
Nice.
here for the Giants? Believe it or not, you should sell high immediately on Golden Tate because Sterling Shepard can screw him up.
Let me introduce you to another.
If you could, I don't know that there's much of an opportunity. Like, what are you trying to get? A number 3 wide receiver for him?
Well, I think he's
You might be
been
able to trade him
basically
for Carlos Hyde.
he's been sort of a number 2 wide receiver in PPR. He's basically Golden Tate the last 3 weeks, getting 10 targets, getting 8 catches. He can't. I don't think he can do that with Shepard. That's my guess.
Well,
Agreed.
but Shepard's not going to take him off the field. I
No,
would imagine
no.
Shepard would take off, the Benny Fowler.
It's not playing
Cody
time.
Latimer.
It's targets.
Yeah.
You think he can still? You think Golden Tate can be Golden Tate?
I don't think he can be. I think he could be like 5 or 6 catches a week.
Yet another
Not bad.
terrifying
Okay.
creature of
Philadelphia 31,
That doesn't make him a
Buffalo.
number 2 receiver.
No, not quite. He needs to score. Philadelphia 31, Buffalo 13.
We're in Bonzo's brass buttons, am I?
Dallas Goddard is a real problem for Zach Ertz. Over the past 3 weeks, 18 targets for Zach Ertz, 17 targets for Dallas Goddard. All those tight end targets in the Philadelphia offense are still there. They're just getting split evenly now.
Great one.
Are you asking a question or?
It's believe it or not, I give a
That's a
statement,
stat.
and then you say whether you believe it or not.
I
It's a new
believe
game
the
that I
stat.
came up with just this week for the podcast.
I believe the stat you just gave. That was the statement. I believe that is.
Do you believe that Dallas Goddard is a real problem for Zach Ertz?
I believe that's David Wilson.
He is a problem, and so is everybody else in this offense because Ertz just doesn't get the volume. Or maybe he does get the target volume, but he doesn't necessarily. He didn't this week because he doesn't get the yardage that we want. He doesn't get the touchdowns that we want. He's a bust. He's been a bust this year. He's been a terrible bust the last 3 weeks.
Okay, I just want to say this. The Eagles have thrown for less than 200 yards in 4 of their last 5 games. So not only are you dealing with, a iffy target share, you're also dealing with not that much production to go around. There's no way. I know they're not going to have a great passing offense this year. There's no way they're going to be this bad. So
What do you think Jacksonville would want for Nick Bolton?
all right, for the Bills, believe it or not, it's just not going to happen for Devin Singletary. And yes, I know he caught a touchdown. He had 7 touches in this game. It's just not going to happen for Devin Singletary.
Right away.
Well, Gore had 9 touches. I think the Bills' game plan was kind of goofy.
Believe it or not, Dave.
The weather
believe
being
it
what it is.
or not.
I don't believe what you're saying. I still think there's a time and a place for D Singletary.
Okay. I mean, if you have to make a tough call, and he's one of the guys on your bench that you never start, you're thinking about dropping Devin Singletary on Tuesday, what do you do?
Yeah, who am I dropping him for?
Welcome, oh
Gardner
Jets
Minshew.
I am your humble
Well,
servant.
yeah. I mean, if I'm really in a bind, and he's my worst player, then I'm probably gonna have to let him go. Maybe I try and trade him first. Trade him with another player to get 1 point back.
Seattle 27, Atlanta 20.
We need to worry about Russell Wilson against bad teams.
No, I don't believe it.
Look, I will say I believe it. Because he has had 4 games with 30 or more fantasy points, and 4 games with 15 to 19 fantasy points. And that, to me, defines Russell Wilson. That I don't know if last year was so much the case. But I've always sort of felt like he has been a boomer bust quarterback week by week, and at the end of the year, he ends up being one of the best in fantasy. But that is Russell Wilson.
And I think the one point of clarification I would say, because when you say somebody is boom or bust, it makes it sound like the player themselves is inconsistent. And that's not the case with Russell Wilson anymore. He is an elite quarterback. He's one of the best quarterbacks in the entire league. His situation, though, he threw 20 passes in this game. His situation is so wildly inconsistent that it can have a really bad effect on his fantasy production. I worry about him not so much like worried about what defense he's facing and if that defense can stop him, because I don't really think there are, but maybe 1 or 2 that could. I worry about facing teams that aren't going to score very many points, and when they just go run.
I still think at the end of the day, you start Russell Wilson every week, though, right?
Yeah, right. Because
you don't
what
wanna
happens if one of
right? You don't want to leave 30 points on your bench.
what happens if the game ends up being competitive? on a week where you leave Russell on the bench and he goes off for 350 and 4, you don't want to have that happen. I'm just going to start him every week.
What do you guys think about DK Metcalf? He's 80% owned. He's 40% started. And I think he's another guy where he just caught 2 touchdowns, which is great because we said he did not have 1 red zone catch all year on 9 targets. And 2 touchdowns this week. But, you know, like I could see a case where he's a must-add or a must-play, but also a droppable player, depending on your roster. You know what I mean? Like, he's not the most consistent.
Well, I
guy.
think you're going to start him against Tampa Bay. I think you're going to start him against Tampa Bay, and then we'll try to sell him as fast as we can.
serve us.
Which means you'll just drop him. But yeah, a streaming receiver in week
The
number 9.
Rendori shall
Matt
prove
Shaw,
our
man.
worth.
Matt Shaw threw for 460 yards on 52 passes. Russell Gage, last question, just going to be real quick on this one here. Russell Gage had 7 catches for 58 yards on 9 targets. Could you see him being a Mohamed Sanu type player in terms of fantasy?
Is that it? Did he officially like work the slot and do all that stuff?
I have no idea, but he had 9 targets and 7 catches.
I'll take a look.
I'll say no.
Could he be a guy? Yeah, I'm not going to be excited to get Russell Gage on my team.
All right, we got like
I'll
5
gauge
minutes
everyone
left.
else's interest first.
There we go. Chargers 17.
Oh yeah, he was their slot guy. He was that was their replacement for Sanu.
Chargers 17, Bears 16. Bears had the ball for 38 minutes. Heath, go ahead.
Melvin Gordon is the best Chargers running back rest of season.
Baladash.
Don't believe it.
Malinore.
Adam does.
By a nose.
Look at him.
Did you say look at him or look at him? By a
Look
nose.
at him.
Melvin Gordon over Austin Eckler, I will say.
Oh.
Whatever.
Chargers, man, they got really lucky. I don't get it why they don't use Austin Eckler more. I don't know what they see in Melvin that they're just so, heart eye emoji.
I mean, come on,
over
he's
him.
Melvin Gordon. He had one of the best seasons last year. He was amazing.
Yeah, but he just doesn't look the same this year, and we know that Austin Eckler looked amazing this year before Melvin ended.
Did he do it as a runner though? I know going into the game he led the NFL in yards after catch, but as a rusher, he's not running the ball that well this year. So
Give him 10 targets a game.
Why are we
They only
talking
gave him
about
3
these
targets.
running backs though? We should be talking about the Bears running backs. David Montgomery is one of the biggest stories of the week. 27 carries, 135 yards, and a touchdown, plus 4 catches. And what did you make of that, guys?
Well, I was dead wrong on him. I thought that the Bears were going to end up diversifying their run game and getting away from David Montgomery because he was averaging 3 yards and change per carry through the first 7 weeks of the season. I was hesitant to use him. I ended up not using him in a lot of my leagues, and I'm going to pay for it dearly. He had an amazing game, 27 carries, 135 yards in the score, a 55-yard run where he got caught from behind, where 90% of the running backs in the league would not have been caught from behind, and it would have been a long touchdown. And he still was able to score later on in the game. If the Bears keep giving him these opportunities, of course you're going to love him. It's just a matter of will they be in a position to do that with this offense moving forward? And I think the answer is sometimes yes, sometimes no. Probably going to be, you'll probably view him as a number 2 running back for now.
Okay. How about Denver 15 and Indianapolis 13, Heath?
Royce Freeman is better than Philip Lindsay.
No, I don't believe that.
No, but
Second consecutive week. He was.
I hate this.
Yeah, I mean, this is the chance you take with them.
Yeah.
Come
I want to
with an
look
open
up.
mind.
I want to look up the record of the Philip Lindsay owner in all of my leagues, and I don't know why, because I just feel like you sort of have to start Philip Lindsay, and you sort of probably don't have to.
I just feel like I'm starting both of them every week, and they'll be flex worthy at worst.
But also
he had
flex worthy
19
the best.
touches.
I mean.
No, they've had some number 1 running back weeks.
Yeah,
Greetings,
yeah.
Lindsay
yeah.
has for sure.
They do have a pretty good floor, I guess, because they get a ton of touches.
Shadows.
It's hard to
watch
know
over
who's
you.
going to catch the passes. I mean, Philip Lindsay had 5, and Royce Freeman had 1 this week. That's like a complete reversal from last week. I hate it. I absolutely hate this backfield. Drives me crazy.
I'm just starting both of them every week and hoping that they do well.
And on top of that, they lost Juwan James to another injury.
We are the sons and
Right, he's the right
So-
tackle. He's been out most of the year.
He's a, yeah. So
First
their
strike
offensive
belongs
line
to
isn't
us.
very good. They're very conservative offensively. That's part of the reason why they get so much work is because they're so conservative offensively.
Just ask Joe Flacco.
I do feel better about I feel better about having the Broncos backs on my team than I do the Chargers backs.
They get
fair.
Cleveland at home next week. That could be good. Then a bye, and then it gets really tough.
Last thought on this game here. Cortland Sutton, 3 catches, 72 yards, and he drew 3 penalties. I think 2 pass interferences and a hold. And you got Joe Flacco after the game saying, we need to get the ball more to Cortland Sutton, basically. I just hope he doesn't get Drew locked out of production, which could certainly happen.
I don't know when Locke is going to play. He's still injured right now.
Yeah, I don't know that he's ever going to play.
Yeah, right. I don't know if he's
not.
I mean, eventually he will.
Well, he
this
may not.
year, I don't know.
Rams 24,
I don't know when it's
Bengals
gonna
10.
happen.
Let's do it. Rams 24, Bengals 10.
Joe Mixon's going to be just fine after the bye.
Define just fine.
Top 24 running back that you just start every week.
You're going to have to not against Baltimore.
I don't believe it.
Not against Baltimore.
I think he'll be close to that.
Right.
Right.
He have 10 yards
Your
against
legend,
Baltimore
bro.
rushing. That's their game after the bye.
I just wonder because they'll get Cordy Glenn back, right?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know if
And-
I don't know if Cordy Glenn will ever play for the Bengals.
And they'll have AJ Green back in theory.
Yeah.
I think the
Maybe.
offense will probably be a little bit better.
I agree.
think he's worth having on a roster. I talked about this earlier in the show. He was one of my winners because I'm weird about how I pick my winners, but I don't think he's going to be a superstar running back at all. I think he's going to be very close to the very tail end of the number 2 running back spectrum the rest of the season.
He basically, what he did today, what Joe Mixon did today, he kind of did 3 straight weeks 3, 4, and 5. And then in week 6 and 7, he had 18 carries for 12 yards combined at Baltimore and home against Jacksonville. So I don't know that he did anything too, miraculous today. He just happened to score a touchdown. So, but
he
if
had 21 touches. I think that matters.
yeah, but like if you look at weeks 5, if you look at weeks 3 through 5, he had 15 to 19 carries in every game and 60 or more rushing yards. Today he had 17 carries for 66 rushing yards. The same thing. He just scored. But I've been saying it for weeks. A.J. Green is going to make him better. I just am concerned about him against Baltimore because their run defense is ferocious when they have Brandon Williams. That's our next game after the bye. Another thing in here. Todd Gurley, give me your thoughts on, Jared Goff. Like, he's coming off 2 big games, and we sort of predicted it, Atlanta and Cincinnati. Do you have faith in Jared Goff going forward, bye coming up, and then obviously tougher games than what he just faced? Do you have faith in Jared Goff going forward?
Not really.
Not a lot. This is a great sell high candidate.
Yeah. New Orleans 31 and Arizona 9. Keith Cummings.
You can't start any Cardinals on Thursday night.
They are facing the Niners.
Greetings,
agree.
That's correct.
I believe it.
I'm thinking about Zane Gonzalez. I don't think you can even start him.
No, sit them all.
Oh.
Christian Kirk in PPR. Can he get you 12?
He possibly could.
Okay.
I'd rather
that's
not.
as good as it gets. That's the nicest thing I could say about an Arizona Cardinal on Thursday Night Football.
By the way, what did I say on the radio show on Saturday night? Drew Brees averaged how many points at home last week, Dave? Last month. Or last year.
Week,
Last year.
he didn't, 0.
Last year
at home, was it 30?
It was 30.5, and he scored 30 points at home in 6-point per passing touchdown leagues. And his next home game is Atlanta. He's got 2 games against Atlanta still to come. All right, one more game. San Francisco 51, Carolina 13.
Tevin Coleman is an RB1 moving forward.
I can't believe it.
Yeah, I'm going
I
to say
can't
no.
believe that's not butter.
I'm going to say not quite top 12, but not far.
Yeah.
But if Breida, however long Breida's out, is going to be huge for him.
It's just such
If
and
Breida's out.
we didn't really see this coming, but it's such a perfect situation. After at the beginning of the year, it looked like one of the grossest possible situations any running back could be in, with Jerick McKinnon and Matt Breida and we didn't know how good the offense was, and they've got Jimmy G, so they're obviously going to throw, and we don't know how good the defense is, and now they've got one of the best defenses in the NFL. They have the most efficient run game in the NFL, and they're not throwing hardly at all.
Here's the thing, though. I just want to bring this one thing up, because their last 2 games, they didn't run the ball well. And that was after they lost Kyle Juszczyk, after they had a couple of injuries on the offensive line. So they ran the ball, obviously, amazingly well today against the Panthers, but Coleman and Breida, I think they both sort of struggled in the 2 games before that. Now they'll get healthier as the season goes on. Yeah, I don't know. Look, I'm telling you, Breida had better touches in this game than Tevin Coleman. Coleman had 2 fairly long rushing touchdowns and a catch of like 10 yards for a touchdown. So that's why I can't quite commit to it, because I think it could be kind of a head scratcher going forward. But if Breida's out, then Coleman's the man. Maybe he is anyway. But it's just kind of a toss-up. I don't know. It's frustrating. Fantasy football is so different now. Stop with the running back by committee. Just turn these guys loose. Ugh. Yeah. Wait, so Heath, do you believe it or not?
No, not at all.
Oh, okay. I just argued with myself for like 30 seconds there. I was like, are they going to jump in or what? Am I going to have to keep talking? All right, I'm going to be selfish here to end the show. Do you think I'm going to win in the 2QB league this week? I need it.
No.
I am down by 16 points in PPR, and we're at halftime of the Packers game, just about. Oh, no, we're midway through the second quarter. I have MVS and the Steelers DST. I'm down by 16. My opponent is done. Do you think I'm going to win? 16 points from MVS and the Steelers.
You lose! Loser!
I think you'll
Loser!
All right, everybody.
exactly tied.
Thank you for listening. I think I'm going to win. I'm optimistic. Go ahead, Dave.
Na, na, na.
Yeah.
This is Fantasy Football Today from CBS Sports. Here we go.
Don't need that. We'll go ahead and listen to that.
This is Fantasy Football Today from CBS Sports. Here we go. Email us at fantasyfootball@cbsi.com. Here we go. It's time to dominate your fantasy league. Let's go. Now, here's some combination of Adam, Dave, Jamie, and Heath.
We've got a big trade to talk about in the National Football League, and that trade is, of course, injury-related as the Cardinals acquire Kenyon Drake for a 6th-round draft pick that could become a 5th-round draft pick. Welcome to the show, everybody. I'm Adam Azer here on Fantasy Football Today. In a little bit, I'll be talking to Will Brinson and Chris Towers. We're going to talk about Le'Veon Bell, Carson Wentz, Joe Flacco, and, of course, Kenyon Drake. But right now, I am joined by Dr. David Chow as we welcome you to the Fantasy Football Today Road Tour presented by Little Caesars. Pizza for dinner tonight? How about ordering your favorite online from Little Caesars and using Pizza Portal Pickup? It's the latest, greatest, and hottest way to pick up a pizza without even going to the register. Dr. Chow can be seen on ProFootballDoc.com and at ProFootballDoc on Twitter. And all you really have to do is turn on the internet or the radio, and you are going to hear Dr. David Chow, the busiest man. Thank you for making time for us. We appreciate it. How are you today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on. I enjoy these segments.
Yeah, we love having you on. So let's talk about the Cardinals running backs. We just get a report just a few minutes ago that Chase Edmonds, according to NFL Network, is expected to miss a few weeks. He's got a hamstring injury. David Johnson still with the ankle, and they just acquired Kenyon Drake. So what's your read on this Cardinals running back situation?
Well, as I always say, when things from the outside don't make sense, it's because you don't know the whole story. And obviously, the Chase Edmonds injury had something to do with the trade, right, in terms of getting Kenyon Drake. And it probably has to do with the David Johnson injury. Last night on Periscope and at the website, I was asked who's more likely to play since the Cardinals play on Thursday, David Johnson or Chase Edmonds. And I said, well, if I had to pick, I would pick David Johnson. But my actual answer is neither. And that seems to be the case now, right? It's going to be Kenyon Drake that is going to be the guy on Thursday. At least that's my belief at this point in time. Even though he's new to the team, and even though it's a different, plays and the whole deal, that's just lining up that way. The answer is neither.
So do you have any idea how long David Johnson could be out?
I think David Johnson has a good chance to return, not this Thursday, but the next week in week 10. I think that's probably where he.
Okay.
Chase Edmonds is just an answer.
Right. All right. Well, let's keep our fingers crossed for that. There are a lot of teams on bye in week 10, so I know you'd love to get David Johnson back. And if you were with questions about what we think about Kenyon Drake's value when David Johnson comes back, we'll talk about that with Will and Chris in a little bit. Miles Sanders, according to The Athletic, he left with a shoulder injury. He didn't seem concerned. The Athletic says that he will not miss time. Miles Sanders with the shoulder injury, so that seems like good news. Are you buying it, Dr. Chow?
Yeah, I am. For MRIs, precautionaries. I didn't see a lot on video. That doesn't mean that there isn't anything, but I did not see a lot on video, so it does fit my expectations in terms of his return. And heck, Darren Sproles might be back this week too.
Oh, well, a little crowded back there. Gordon Howard had a big workload, of course. Not sure we're going to get much of a workload from Darren Sproles, but I hope he doesn't take Miles Sanders off the field for passing down. Sanders has really been great there. Meanwhile, got that Thursday game, not just the Cardinals, but also the Niners dealing with running back injuries. Jeff Wilson and Matt Breida, specifically Breida, more fantasy relevant here. He has an ankle injury, and Breida says he's fine. He thinks he'll play this week, but it's a short turnaround. Did you see anything revealing with Matt Breida?
Yeah, first of all, Matt Breida, many times on my Pro Football Doc podcast last year, I called him aside because that guy has made me wrong so many times. Last year with the high ankle and this, that, the other, like, oh, he's not playing this week. And like 3 times he played. I mean, I love Matt Breida. He's as tough as they come. But Matt Breida, you've made me look bad more than any other athlete out there. You suffer these injuries, and I don't think you're coming back to play, and you do all the time. Well, this time, I don't think he's got a lot. I think it's a low ankle sprain. It's not that bad. It happened in the last play of the first half. And he probably could have continued to play, but, the score was fairly out of hand, and the team, I'm sure, knew, obviously, looking ahead to the Thursday game. So I expect there to be good news.
Oh, all right, well, that probably means he's out for a month, right? Based on your history with Matt Breida. But no, that's...
No, he's always beat estimates. So
Okay.
This means he'll be back full practice on Tuesday and Wednesday.
All right, good news for Matt Breida. Not as good for Tevin Coleman, I guess, from a fantasy standpoint. Did you see the Deshaun Watson play? That was crazy. Have you ever seen someone get kicked in the eye like that?
Well, the opening in the face mask is not that big, so it was literally the perfect post-kill shot, right? With a freak injury. And, obviously he's probably going to wear an eye shield next week, right, to prevent that. But, yeah, it was just a freak issue, freak injury there. But, the good news is there's double protection for your eye, right? The face mask and the opening is only so big, and the shoe barely fit right into it. And but it still didn't hit his eyeball, right? Because you have an eye socket, and the bony protuberances around the eye protected him from that being a really bad injury.
So you think he should be fine? Vision?
I think he should be fine, yeah. Vision, I think he should be fine.
I think he showed he only needs one eye to throw a touchdown pass, apparently. And
yeah, he finished the play and threw a touchdown. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah, it was amazing. He just said he kind of knew where Darren Fells was going to be. It was a great play. And Brandon Cooks was evaluated for a concussion. There's obviously concussion history here. They're going into their bye. What do you anticipate the process being like for Cooks now?
Well, you treat every concussion individually, but you certainly take into account the history of concussion. And this apparently is the second time he's been in the concussion protocol this year. So, statistics would tell you that he will not play week 9. And you got to look at week 10, and hopefully he can be back week 10. That's what statistics would tell you when it's a second concussion. But, of course, every concussion is treated differently and taken in its individual merits and testing, and needs clearance from the independent doctor. But if you're a betting man, he's not playing this week.
All right, Dr. Chow, that's all we got for you today. Kind of a quick one. Appreciate your time. Again, everybody, please follow him on Twitter at ProFootballDoc and go to ProFootballDoc.com. Really, really cool website. Thanks for hopping on.
Thank you.
I want to remind everyone to send in your questions for our Apple Podcast mailbag. You can leave us a nice review and a question, and we read those on Wednesdays and Saturdays. And when we come back, we've got 5 big topics to get to. Is Joe Flacco is not playing this week? What does this mean for Cortland Sutton? And much more, including a Le'Veon Bell discussion. That's after this on Fantasy Football Today. Okay, football fans, you're at the bar, watching the game, having a Tullamore Dew Irish whiskey. Your team scores, and suddenly you're best friends with the strangers next to you. Now, not the kind of friends you drive to the airport, more like the kind of friends who you exchange stats with, argue ref calls with, and dry those post-game tears with, all without knowing each other's names. Tullamore Dew calls these friendships fanships. So next time the game is on, strike up a fanship and order a Tully for the person next to you. Tullamore Dew is the original triple-blended, smooth-sipping Irish whiskey made exactly for these great moments in fandom. When it's game time, it's Tully time. Tullamore Dew Irish whiskey, 40% alcohol by volume, 2019 imported by William Grant & Sons Incorporated, New York, New York. All right, here we go, everybody.
Need help?
It's Monday afternoon.
Safe
Poindexter. Let's get nerdy. Chris Towers. Oh, can I tell everybody about your New York City
Have a good
flub
one.
from last week?
Sure, sure.
It was
Is it
so
the couch?
funny. No, it was the conference room thing.
Oh, yes, yeah. No, I had 2 really great, embarrassing New York City things happen to me. The one you're talking about, plus I ordered a couch. It was delivered on Friday. They get it into the lobby of my building, and they realize there is no way in the world that this couch is ever going to fit up the tiny stairs.
That happens a lot in New York. That happened to my brother. He had to saw the couch. They had to saw the couch in half and put it back together in the apartment. Yeah, that happens. That's a thing.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
We just had to send the couch back. We're just not going to have that couch.
Also, Will Brinson is here, ladies and gentlemen. Will Brinson.
Also, Will.
Woo! All right, Will. Let's get into it. Will is a big fan of the Quad City DJs. He talks about them all the time. So, Will, I went to the New York City office to have a meeting with Chris and some others, and we had some conference room issues. And the thing is, in the New York City office, all of the conference rooms are named after streets, basically, or like neighborhoods. So we had to switch conference rooms in the middle of a meeting, or we had to ask somebody else to switch. And she's like, oh, okay, which conference room did you originally book? Because we were going to send her there. And Chris goes, Houston. And then he leaves, and I'm like, dude, it's Houston. You're a New Yorker now, and you can't be calling it Houston.
Is it spelled the same as
Yes,
Houston?
it's spelled the same.
Well, what was around first, Houston, the neighborhood, or Houston, the city?
He's a New Yorker. All of the conference rooms are it's like Chelsea, Bowery, Canal Street. It's like he goes Houston.
It's actually pronounced Bowery.
Oh, is it? Okay, my bad.
I don't think that.
I don't think most of the people listening to this are going to view that as a faux pas.
Well, all the New Yorkers are. They're all gonna laugh. They're all gonna laugh at you. Okay, let's get to our 5 topiks. Let's starting with Kenyon Drake, getting traded to Arizona for a 6th-round pick. They could become a 5th-round pick. Does he have? Will, I'll throw it to you first. Any value once David Johnson and/or Chase Edmonds get healthy? Not this week on Thursday against Jefferson.
Probably minimal value. It's a really weird trade because the Cardinals are in last place in their division. They are, 3-4-1. They just lost badly to the Saints on the road. There's, I would say, a 0% chance that they're going to make the playoffs, given that they're behind the 49ers, Seahawks, and Rams, all of whom look much better. And they just gave up a pick for a running back who's in the final year of his deal. I guess it would tell me that Kenyon Drake is in play for Thursday night. I think that you could potentially play him on Thursday, because if they're trading for him, it means that David Johnson is almost certainly a no-go. It means that Chase Edmonds is probably going to be limited at best. potentially could miss the game entirely. And if you're willing to roll the dice on Kenyon Drake against the 49ers on a short week, maybe you could get some value out of him as a flex. But no, once those two guys are healthy, he doesn't have any value. Now, that's assuming they do get healthy. Maybe they don't get healthy. Who knows? If they don't, then Kenyon Drake is certainly worth owning.
Chris, what's your read on this situation? Drake was the number 13 running back in PPR last year. He was 22 in non-PPR. Most of his value came in the passing game, 53 catches, 477 yards, and 5 touchdowns. Maybe he's better than Chase Edmonds. Maybe he has kind of a PPR-ish role or something. They don't run the ball all that much, but they do throw the ball to their running backs. By the way, San Francisco allows the second fewest receiving yards per game to running backs. McCaffrey had only 4 catches for 38 yards. That's the best game by a receiving running back this year. So I'm sorry for talking too long. What's your take on this trade and on the values of David Johnson, Chase Edmonds, and Kenyon Drake going forward as their next 3 games are San Francisco, Kansas City, San Francisco, and Atlanta?
I don't like when coaches lie. And it appears that that's what Cliff Kingsbury did with David Johnson. They say in week 7, oh, he's healthy enough to play. He gets the start, he gets 1 carry, plays 3 snaps. And then they're like, after the game, oh, well, we didn't have a backup. We wanted to keep David Johnson just in case something happened to Chase Edmonds. He was an emergency backup. Well, okay, that's fine. That makes sense. I don't know why.
It's not really. If he's not healthy enough to play, like you're really gonna
right. But if we take them at face value that he was healthy enough to play, but they wanted to make sure that if something happened to Chase Edmonds, they thought they could get through the game with Chase Edmonds, but if something did happen, they had David Johnson ready to play. Clearly, that was not the case.
Right.
He was not healthy enough to play this week. He's not healthy enough to play in week 9, and now they needed to go out and get another one. Well, the whole thing is so frustrating because it was clear that they were not telling the truth at any point on David Johnson, because it sounded like the injury wasn't that bad, and maybe them signing Alfred Morris and Zach Center this week was more about the fact that DJ Foster, the 3rd string running back, had gotten hurt. Now, they're going to have to keep, I would guess, Zenner, and Alfred Morris will be gone. Kenyon Drake will be the starter this week. Is this a serious enough injury that it's going to linger beyond week 9? That's what the Kenyon Drake trade tells me.
Yeah.
Chase Edmonds, we don't know the severity of the hamstring injury. Hamstrings obviously are the kind of injury that can tend to linger longer than you might think, even if it's a low-grade strain.
So who's a more exciting ad right now, Kenyon Drake or Mark Walton? Let's spin it to fantasy.
Well, Mark Walton is available in about 61% of leagues, and Drake is about 20%.
So let's say they're both out there. Who would you rather own, Kenyon Drake or Mark Walton?
I think if I'm desperate for a win in week 9, I would rather have Kenyon Drake. But I think Mark Walton is almost certainly going to outscore him rest of the season.
It's really interesting. But I just don't think David Johnson. I don't think Kenyon Drake's going to be. Look, they didn't give up a lot, right? They gave up a 5th round, a 6th round pick. It could be a 5th round pick. I think once David Johnson comes back, Kenyon Drake's value is 0 or close to it.
Yeah, I mean, the way they use their running backs, they do like to split guys out wide. We were seeing them run with both Edmonds and Johnson on the field. A little bit, I think, in week 6 was the last time that Johnson was healthy. So, you know, Kenyon Drake is a guy who's a pretty good pass catcher, like you said. A lot of his value comes in PPR. He fits in with what they want to do, but he does seem superfluous if those guys are healthy. So what it tells me is that those guys they don't think they're going to be healthy for at least a little while.
I would hold off and say they didn't give up anything. I mean, like, if the Cardinals are one of the 5 worst teams in football, which is not out of not out of the question. Like, you're talking about a top 150 pick, right? I mean,
well, did I say that, or I said they didn't give up much?
Yeah.
No. I mean, I'm just saying that, like, it's very weird for this team to spend a draft pick on a guy that's going to a rental for 8 games or like 9 games or whatever it is, instead of just signing somebody off the street. I mean, it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense in my opinion.
All right. So just full disclosure, I'm doing the David Chow interview, the Dr. David Chow interview after this segment. So I'm going to ask him about the running backs. You already have heard it because it's going to be one of the first things you hear.
Something?
But I can't sit here and say, well, David Chow said this because I haven't talked to him yet. But I will actually at the beginning of the show. Actually, it was recorded later in the day. So yeah. All right. So let's talk about the Dolphins real quick. And Mark Walton, who, we'll obviously be able to talk more about it on Tuesday's show because he's playing tonight against the Steelers and could get a big workload. He had 14 carries last week at Buffalo and 1 catch for -8 yards. He's 39% owned. Kalen Ballage is 9% owned. I think I'm gonna mostly just wait until after tonight, and then we can talk about it with Dave and Jamie on Tuesday. But all right, Will, what's your basic level of interest in Mark Walton and Kalen Ballage for the lowest scoring team per game in the NFL? Yeah, what do you think?
Well, I would say this: the Dolphins have a pretty good playoff schedule. They get the Giants and the Bengals in weeks 15 and 16. So,
the Giants who have 2 first-round pick defensive tackles now?
yes, they did trade. They did trade a third. They were the only team interested in Leonard Williams, so they gave up a third and a fifth for him. That could become a fourth if they signed him to a contract after renting him for eight games. But I'm sure Giants fans will defend Dave Gettleman on this one. Anyway,
the horde will fall.
No, I mean, but like the Bengals in Week 16, I'm not suggesting Mark Walton's going to win you your fantasy league. But if I was a team that needs somebody who's going to get carries now, and B somebody who could potentially be a viable flex or RB2 down the road, I would absolutely be stashing Walton. I grabbed him in a 14-team league. He cleared waivers, so I got him for nothing, no cost. I mean, you don't want to go out and drop 40% of your fab or anything like that. But I think if you can get him on the cheap, he's a nice back-end bench addition who could actually be a viable starter at various points if he's getting some carries here.
All right, we're going to see how the carries shape up and shake out tonight for the Dolphins at the Steelers. And you say, I don't want the running back on the lowest scoring team in the NFL. Well, do you want the running back on the second lowest scoring team in the NFL, points per game? That would be the New York Jets. We're going to talk about Le'Veon Bell in a little bit. Have you ordered a pizza online from Little Caesars yet? If not, you're missing out on Pizza Portal Pickup. What is Pizza Portal Pickup? It's like getting a pizza right out of the oven yourself. You walk in, you enter a code on the portal, a door opens, and you're off with your favorite pizza. And whatever pizza you order, it'll have crazy, crazy amounts of toppings. It's fun. Give it a try, but it's only available at Little Caesars Pizza. All right, so that topic is, for me. The rest of them are listener-generated. Matthew Wood says, is Cam Newton coming back to a job? And Chris actually replied to Matthew Wood and said, at this point, it seems like the answer is yes. But how good do we think Cam Newton could be? He was my absolute favorite draft day value at quarterback, or maybe at any position. I had such high hopes for him. He ran for -2 yards in 2 games, obviously was not right. Chris, what do you think about Cam Newton's outlook rest of season? And we don't know when he's coming back, but we assume it's soon, and we assume he's the start.
Yeah, I think there might have been some question before Week 8 about whether Cam Newton was going to get his job back. I don't think there should have been, and I don't think at this point that there is at all. The 49ers are really good, but
right.
Kyle Allen, I don't think he's looked like a difference maker, and that kind of seals it. As good as Cam Newton can be, I think is he healthy? Like, that's the only question for me. I don't think Cam Newton just forgot how to play football. I think he wasn't healthy. I think he had that ankle/foot injury in the preseason and just never got right. He clearly wasn't right the first 2 games of the season. He clearly wasn't right at the end of last season. I think it was the Pittsburgh game. Yep. He got hit by T.J. Watt, and was it T.J. Watt? And just wasn't the same guy after. Although even then, he finished off the season 2 really bad games, but before that, 11 straight games with at least 2 touchdown passes. I think he was playing better than maybe we've ever seen him, at least as a passer last season.
Statistically, he absolutely was. Yep.
And I think he has the most talented receiving core that he's ever had.
Yeah. Leading up to the Carolina game, to the Pittsburgh game, he was a straight-up MVP candidate. He was playing really well. His efficiency was up. His completion percentage was way up. And then he suffered that shoulder injury, and he just couldn't throw downfield at all. It was sad by the end of the season. They should have shut him down earlier. They should have done the shoulder surgery mid-season, and he would have been right coming in. Now, the question for me is that this foot injury, this Lisfranc injury that it's reported to be, is not something that you can just rest for 4 or 5 weeks and come back from. Now, Cam's a really different breed of human being. I get that. But I've been told very reliably that the Panthers will not start him until he is completely 100%. Now, does that 100% number, is there a gray area on 100% if the Panthers lose their next 2 games? Probably, because then all of a sudden, it's like, well, maybe we would like 70% of Cam is fine. But I think they would like it to get him to 100%. I think they will try to play the Titans with Kyle Allen. That's my best guess. If they lose that game, because I think they believe they can beat the Titans with Kyle Allen under center, with their defense and with the way that they run the ball. If they can win that game, then it gives them an extra week, of course, before they play the Packers in Green Bay. The game got bumped to 4:25. Probably the national game of the week. Could potentially be Cam's return. And then they have the Falcons twice and the Saints twice down the stretch. So they would love to try and get through this Titans game with Kyle Allen, get a win, knowing that everything is in front of them in terms of the division because of the matchups remaining on their schedule. I just don't think anybody can really know when Cam will be back until we actually see him practicing, because as of now, he's really only been with the training. From a fantasy perspective, I would not be surprised at all if he ran a lot less when he comes back than he had been before because of that footage.
And he was actually running a lot less after the shoulder injury, too.
Sure.
Once that Pittsburgh game came, right after that, he was rushing yards totals, including that Pittsburgh game in his last 6 games. 10, 2, 63, 33, 23, and 15 without a touchdown. He had 4 rushing touchdowns before that in his first, I think, 9 games, maybe 9 games, and he was running all over the place. I mean, so I think if he were normal, healthy Cam, and he were still running for 600 plus yards a season, I honestly think he has QB1, like the #1 quarterback in fantasy upside. But as of now, I still think he has top 10 upside, and I think at 40-something% owned, he's a big waiver wire priority for me.
If I had Kirk Cousins, Kyler Murray type of player as my starter right now, I would go take a flyer on him. Matt Ryan, same thing because of that injury. If you're trying to roll with Sam Darnold, or you had Teddy Bridgewater and now Breeze is back, yeah, of course, go take a flyer on Cam Newton. But if I've got Aaron Rodgers, Matthew Stafford, even Drew Brees, I just think if you
love Stafford.
Love Stafford. Stafford's having a great year. But I think if you've got any of those guys, you don't necessarily need to use the roster spot on Cam, because you're probably taking a flyer on a guy who you just don't know how he's going to be week to week, depending on the injury.
Okay. Next topic comes from Bookie Brian. What to think of Le'Veon Bell? Chris, Le'Veon Bell is averaging 3.2 yards per carry. In his last 3 games since Sam Darnold's return, he has 15, 16, and 12 touches. He had 22 or more touches in each of his first 4 games. One of those was with Sam Darnold. And we know the schedule is very, very good. It's not necessarily completely bad run defense the entire time, but bad defenses in general. A lot of points could be scored. What do you think of Le'Veon Bell?
I don't think any of this has to do with Le'Veon Bell. I think the Jets are a disaster right now. I don't know if we definitely need an exorcist for Sam Darnold.
How about the Jaguars dressing up Jackson DeVille in a ghost costume and then blaring the Ghostbusters theme song while playing Sam Darnold highlights in the middle of the game against Sam Darnold? That is high-level troll.
It's amazing.
What was the plane before the game?
Gardner Minshew ain't afraid of no ghost.
And then it said Duval. Love it.
Yeah. That's such peak Florida. It's like South Georgia, peak South Georgia.
Yeah, it's
whatever.
By the way, on that the Arizona running back discussion, Tom Pelissero of NFL Media reports, literally as we're recording this, Chase Edmonds will likely miss, quote, a few weeks with a hamstring strain.
Oh,
so
wow.
That's not surprising.
Well, of course, I already talked about that with Dr. Chow. Will, you weren't listening?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Right.
Okay, so
I
guys,
forgot that was coming before. My bad.
I've got 10 minutes left with you guys before the doc gives me a call.
So going back to Le'Veon Bell, he's averaging, you said 3.2 yards per carry. The motley crew of Elijah McGuire, Isaiah Crowell, and Bilal Powell, I think last year, averaged 4.14 yards per carry. So I don't think Le'Veon Bell is somehow worse than them. I don't think he's looked bad this season when I've watched him. I just think he's in a really disadvantageous situation, and the fact that the touches are going down over the last few weeks is a little bit concerning, but he's still playing 75, 80, 90% of the snaps. I think this week, week 8 was his lowest snap share of the season, but it was still 75 to 80%. So I don't think there's any real reason to be concerned as long as this Jets offense can be better than they have been so far. And you know, Dallas, New England, Jacksonville, that's a tough stretch. He's only had Darnold for 4 of the 6 games or 4 of the 7 games that he's played. One of them he clearly wasn't right. I wonder if Darnold still isn't right. they're going to be better than they have been so far. And Miami, New York Giants, Washington, that's a really good way to get right. I think Le'Veon Bell is someone that I'd absolutely be looking to buy low on.
So we have gone over the past week on Monday. Le'Veon Bell, I thought he went a little too high in the rest of season mock. Ben Gretsch loves him. He took him 6th, but ahead of Nick Chubb, ahead of Leonard Fournette. I understand. I mean, I understand the Chubb thing because you got Kareem Hunt coming back. I still think I'd take Chubb at this point, but I cannot take Le'Veon Bell over Leonard Fournette. No chance. Leonard Fournette's on pace for 70 catches. I think he'll be short of that pace, but still over 50, rest of season catches. Like, pace. So, anyway, would you take Le'Veon Bell or Aaron Jones, who went, 15-ish picks after Le'Veon Bell in that draft that we did? Maybe more like 13-ish picks. And last night, Heath said he would take Aaron Jones over Le'Veon Bell. Who would you guys rather have rest of season?
I mean, what does Aaron Jones look like when Devontae Adams comes back? Have we talked about that?
No, but what's your answer?
He's been okay on the ground, but he's been really, really good the last couple of weeks.
It's a very good point. It's a very good point. So, sorry, just to hurry you up because I want to get to all our topics, and I just have 8 minutes left. What's your answer?
I think I'd still rather have Le'Veon.
Aaron Jones.
I'm so confused.
But I do agree with everything that Chris said in the sense that he's a great buy low, and the schedule coming up features the Dolphins twice, the Redskins, the Raiders, the Bengals. I mean, it's about as good as you can ask for. I would be worried about that Ravens-Steelers playoff matchups, though.
That's Le'Veon Bell's schedule, yeah. Yeah, you're just buying into the touches and thinking that things can't get worse. So maybe you pivot and you go to Le'Veon Bell in your FanDuel lineup in Week 9 against the Dolphins. Maybe you'll get a nice little discount there on Le'Veon Bell. And if you've never played on FanDuel before, that's actually good news because you can get $20 in site credit if you deposit $20. You go to FanDuel.com/FFT, FanDuel.com/FFT, and make a $20 deposit and get $5 in site credit every week for 4 weeks. I cannot believe it's like two weeks in a row. I have missed out on cashing in our Fantasy Football Today contest by 2 points. So close. But it's going to, things are going to change. I think I might actually go with Le'Veon Bell this week. I think there's a lot of upside there. You got to go for big upside when you're talking FanDuel. Get on FanDuel.com/FFT and make that $20 deposit. Play for $1, play for $5, play for $10, play for $20, play for $50, play whatever you want. There are contests out there for everyone, and I just love it because I don't have to deal with bye weeks and injuries and crappy players and bad matchups and all that stuff. I get to use all of this knowledge from the podcast and put it toward making a great fantasy football lineup. Again, FanDuel.com/FFT. Sign up, make a $20 deposit, and get $5 in site credit every week for 4 weeks at FanDuel.com/FFT or download the FanDuel app. 2 more topics, ladies and gentlemen. Oh,
hold on.
Joe Flacco not starting in Week 9?
Dun, 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 dun.
Well, that's going to be a topic. Should have sold high on Cortland Sutton, I guess. Brandon Allen is going to start.
Do you think this is a do you think he injured his neck on that final play where he got absolutely jacked from behind? Or do you think he injured his neck when he called out Vic Fangio and the coaching staff for not being aggressive enough and then suddenly had a neck injury? Which one do you think it is?
Yeah, he stuck his neck out for the
Joe
offense.
Flacco
yeah.
looks more like he doesn't want to play football anymore than maybe any player I've seen in the NFL in a long time.
He looks more like he doesn't want to play football than Andrew Luck.
Yeah.
Who quit playing football. He's out there, he just looks completely disinterested. He's like,
it's wild.
A hurry up offense.
Okay, well, listen, I am genuinely concerned about Cortland Sutton now.
Sure.
Cleveland this week, been a bye, then at Minnesota, at Buffalo. There are actually more good matchups than bad matchups, I'd say. But Xavier Rhodes, Tre'Davious White, and Darius Slay are still on the schedule. By the way, how come we didn't even talk we should have spent at least 20 minutes on the fact that we almost had Darius Slay versus Darius Slayton in Week 8, but it didn't happen. But, in all seriousness here, how does this affect Sutton? How does this affect the running backs? What's your take? Your, literally immediate instant reaction to Joe Flacco being benched for Brandon Allen.
Joe Flacco's not that good, so I don't think it hurts them that much. I mean, Brandon Allen, I don't want to do the it can't get worse because we've seen with Odell Beckham to Cleveland this year, we've seen with Daniel Jones taking over with Eli Manning, that sometimes it can get worse, or at least not better. But in this instance, I think you downgrade them a little bit, but I'm not so concerned that it's going to be unplayable.
Well, I think what we've seen, Will. I'm sorry. You know what? You make your point. Go ahead.
No, I just want to find a time machine and go back about 3 or 4 months and pick someone else to win the division because it's getting.
Picked up Bronco. Oh my gosh. I think that when you look at all of the backup quarterbacks and how they have affected the number 1 wide receivers on the team, it's actually been pretty okay. I mean, Tyreek Hill has had one good game and one solid game. Michael Thomas didn't skip a beat. Juju Smith-Schuster with Mason Rudolph was, okay.
It was fine.
But he was bad with the third stringer, Devlin Hodges. So I think, and
Brandon Allen is technically the third stringer.
That's true. I don't know that I don't know that I have a ton of analysis right now because I don't know anything about Brandon Allen other than he's on the Rams.
He's a 27-year-old former 6th-round pick. So that probably tells you most of what you need to know about Brandon Allen.
It's no good. What would you? Okay, right now, let's make some Sutton trades. Let's make some Sutton trades.
You want me to make an offer just off the top of my head right now?
Would you give up Robert Woods to get Cortland Sutton? Who would you rather have?
Woods.
Okay, he's been terrible.
But I'm not sure I wouldn't have rather had Woods before that.
I don't think you should at this point. I mean, well, no, before the Flacco benching. I think we have to seriously downgrade Robert Woods unless Cooks misses significant time. Come on. Their offense isn't nearly as good, and even in the 2 games where it was good, he's doing nothing.
Their offense
one
is
game
different.
Okay.
They're not splitting the targets 3 ways. They have a clear number 1 now, and it's Cooper Kupp.
Yeah, and they have Gerald Everett in there.
The biggest fantasy miss in any sport of all time is 2019 Cooper Kupp. I have 0 shares.
Well,
I have lots of Brandon Cooks and Robert Woods.
Well, in defense of the Cooper Kupp thing, he did come back from like 3 months after tearing his ACL.
Yeah.
It was a crazy return time. It was like secretly crazier than Emmanuel Sanders' return, but nobody talked about it in the same way.
All right. So who would you rather have, Will? Woods or Sutton?
I would take Woods, I think, because the whole quarterback situation.
How about Alshon Jeffrey or Cortland Sutton?
I'll take Alshon.
I would go Cortland.
All right, our last question. We have literally 60 seconds. Carson Wentz rest of season. And I apologize for rushing everyone. That didn't really work out so well today. Carson Wentz rest of season, what are your thoughts? 20 seconds from Chris. Go.
I would love to see Deshaun Jackson get healthy and see what Carson Wentz could do with him because I was really excited about that. Sounded like they were doing great in training camp. Good first game. Until that happens, I think he's probably more like a number 2 fantasy QB. I dropped the screen Gardner Minshew.
Yeah, I like the matchups for him down the stretch if they can get Deshaun Watson back. Miami week 13, Giants week 14, Washington 15, and Dallas 16. So I think a guy that can be helpful to the team, especially if he's dropped. And I think he might be over the next few weeks with Chicago and New England, plus a bye coming up. I think there's an opportunity to buy low on him. I'm not going to trade a bunch for him.
They got to throw more passes. They're 19th in the NFL in pass attempts per game. He's had 4 games with 36 or more pass attempts. In 3 of those 4 games, he scored 24 or more fantasy points. That's a very good game. The one time he didn't, Alshon Jeffrey and Deshaun Jackson both got injured. He's had 4 games with less than 30 pass attempts. He's had only 1 good game in those 4 games. So it's about pass attempts. That's not my complete analysis. Talk more about Carson Wentz later in the week, but that is something to know. Clap your hands, everybody. We are out of here. Thanks for listening. For Will, for Chris, and for Dr. Chow, who's about to call, but we already talked to. I'm Adam Acer. See you later, everybody. Waiver wire on Tuesday.
This is Fantasy Football Today from CBS Sports. Here we go. Email us at fantasyfootball@cbsi.com. Here we go. It's time to dominate your fantasy league. Let's go. Now, here's some combination of Adam, Dave, Jamie, and Heath.
That was a high-scoring, high-flying, fun fantasy week. Week 8 almost in the books. 2 games left as we record this. Probably 1 game left as you listen to this. Welcome to Fantasy Football Today.
The Around the NFL podcast hasn't shown up for workouts.
Welcome welcome to another edition of the Around the NFL podcast presented by the United States Marine Corps. My name is Dan Hansis. I'm joined in a room filled with heroes Mark Sessler, Chris Wessling, and Greg Rosenthal. What is up, boys?
Hey, Dan.
Ho! Sunday night, the flagship show, Week 8. Wes, I heard there's some drama going down in the newsroom.
I ran down to the newsroom to pick up my hat because it's a little cool in here, and the whole newsroom was buzzing about an incident at your vacant desk.
Hamina.
One of the beers, an IPA that one of our listeners sent to us a couple of years ago, exploded all over your desk and into the office of a shadowy figure right next to you. It's all over his floor. They're going to have to get the cleaning people in here.
Not just any shadowy league figure. Dave Schott, who otherwise is a nice guy, but he is an insufferable New England sports fan who is riding a little too high on the Pats and the Sox and the Bruins, and it drives me crazy because all my teams suck. So this feels like cosmically why that beer was always
right
at that spot in my desk.
Yeah, that pressurized content blew a hole in the top of the beer can and makes me wonder why I spent 25 years of my life drinking something with that kind of power. What could it be doing to our bodies?
I will. When you mentioned that there was a chaotic scene happening at Dan's desk, and I whispered into your ear, as I do all the time. I love to do that with Wes.
Apparently, that beer can has been on your radar.
It has, because I'll often walk by Dan's desk, and the beer can made a explosive sound around 6 months ago or so.
That alerts ticking time bomb.
Right, because it was one of these cans where it's you find it's been somewhere refrigerated for far too long, and the top looked like it was ready to pop. And so every time I'd walk by, I thought, something is not right with that bullet about to be shot into the ceiling. Instead, it shot into Schott's house.
That's great.
This is the worst moment for Schott since that barbed wire tattoo 25 years ago.
I wonder if I'll get in trouble because it is on my desk. It's beer.
It's an alcoholic beverage on the premises on your desk.
I'm sure it stinks down there.
Oh, it smells like a brewery.
I will not return to the scene of the crime tonight because I feel like I just need to get as far away as possible.
I would put it this way. Before I turned the corner to walk into the newsroom, I smelled and I was thinking, who's drinking IPAs? And I could not only tell it was a beer, I could tell specifically it was an IPA. It smelled so bad.
My favorite thing was, Dan asked, is anyone anywhere in the crowded, packed newsroom filled with people, very able-bodied people, anyone making any effort to clean it up at all? No was the answer, not a person.
Until I went down there, nobody had touched the crime scene.
High drama in the newsroom. All right, we have a lot to get to today, and we have teams remaining undefeated and looking damn good in doing so, and a crushing bit of injury news that we'll get to early in the show. So let's get to work. We have to start somewhere, and we decided in a slate where there was no game that really, Greg, jumped out at us as a pure lead the show, maybe give the